Hello, my bodywork and manual therapy colleagues. It's Mike coming at you from a gorgeous and somewhat socially isolated Seattle evening. And I wanted to chat with you briefly about a question which I know is on your mind, and it's on the mind of a lot of friends and colleagues of mine, which is how and when should I pause my practice? It's a challenging question because it involves a lot of different kinds of information streams. It involves the facts on the ground where you are geographically. It involves your own finances and your senses of service to individual clients, to a community of persons, your sense of service to a profession as a whole. It also is challenging because leadership, both government and professional organization, is giving confusing signals. So the information streams are kind of muddled and the leadership is not giving us clear cues. So what is asked of us, I think, are a few things. Number one, I think what's asked of us is realizing that leadership is something that lives in us. Right? It's not about people occupying particular positions out there. It's about the leadership that grows in our own hearts and that extends from us to our local community, the people whom we serve. Secondly, I think what is asked of us is that we have to make decisions based not just on instinct, but on some kind of thought process. And the reason is because instinct is organized by what is normal and what is local. And coronavirus COVID-19 is a crisis which is neither normal nor local. It involves systemic risk factors, and it involves circumstances which are different than anything we have encountered thus far, right? So what do we do with that? Even as I'm speaking, my heart rate is quickening, and I'm realizing that my whole system is responding to this, not knowing how best to adapt to new circumstances. Well, my ask of you is not that you make a particular decision at this moment, but that you engage in a thought process and define for yourself a threshold at which point you will pause your practice for some period of time. What are the factors here? Well, I think the key question, at least the question that I'm asking myself, is at what point does pausing my practice become likely to save a life? For me, in my world, I work in private practice mostly. It's a room that I mostly can control the circumstances, can sanitize the surfaces. It's in a building which has not terribly high traffic, but probably in excess of 1,000 persons a week go through the building overall. The building is engaging in good sanitation practices, but it's not a sure thing. Initially, I was responding to this, that's to say a couple weeks ago, I sent an email out to my patients and clients saying, hey, here's all the things I'm doing to make a safe practice. So I was proportionally responding to the risk that I perceived. I was cleaning surfaces, I was engaging in hand washing, and I was advising people to stay home if they felt any symptoms. I have to say that my paradigm kind of shifted. And the reason is twofold. Number one, the truth is that even if I can control every part of the journey from a person who enters my building into my massage room, and then I'm scrupulous about my own practices, every session that I do in my practice involves asking a person to leave their home, go out into the world, and interact with the world in some way. So that's a thing. The other thing that's true is that this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic is looking so scary at a global scale, right? It's not scary for us normally, locally. None of us individually is likely to die from this. But if we do not aggressively respond as a community, a global community, soon, earlier than our instincts might ask us to do, then we're looking at a lot of loss of life. In the US, we're looking at a potential of 180 million cases by year's end. That is in the millions dead in the US unless we do something. So, what is our best and most effective tool? It is social isolation. It is limiting the number of instances of contact between humans in these early few weeks before we think it is time to do so. That is every reputable scientific source. That's what they're saying to us. So that can come across in the media as kind of shouting at us, but I want to pair that with a real compassion for the fact that we're talking about recommendations from media weighed against real upfront costs for us in our practice, right? Closing or pausing my practice is thousands of dollars many thousands of dollars every month. That is not something that I can sustain very long without serious consequences. So it's a real decision, weighing the potential for harm versus the certainty of considerable cost to me and my local family community. So here's where I came down on it. I decided on a threshold, which is based on the throughput at my building and based on the facts on the ground here in Seattle. Right now in Seattle, let's say in King County where I'm at, we're looking at roughly 500 confirmed cases of coronavirus, COVID-19, and we can assume something on the order of 5 to 10,000 unconfirmed cases. That's beginning to approach about 0.5% of the population. So when you get to that order of magnitude, we have to guesstimate here, 0.5%. That means that 1 in every 2,000 persons has it right now. And that varies widely depending on where you are. I'm in a fairly dense area. But that means that there's actually a decent probability that someone who is infected has passed in the environs where I work. At that threshold, for me, it became a probability that I would save a life, maybe. Maybe no one I know, but save, or let's say constrain a route of transmission by pausing my practice. The other thing that became true for me is that I knew that if I paused my practice, it would have an impact on the thought process of a lot of people who were in my care. That if they saw that I was pausing my practice and putting myself under that kind of risk, they might respond in kind and take further precautions. And so I decided to pause my practice yesterday, which was a very difficult decision financially, psychologically, spiritually. There's a reason I'm a body worker. It's because I love it. I love being in this role. I love the independence it gives me. I can't believe how lucky I am to do this for a living. And it's pretty scary to pause doing this right now. What I did do was email my clients and patients and say, here's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to pause for 4 weeks. I'm going to reassess in 3 weeks and see if it is warranted to pause further. And I really was honest with my client base that I haven't fully figured out my support system in the meantime. But what I was offering them was a chance to collaborate on creating value in the meantime. So I said, one thing you can do is you can purchase a gift certificate from me, which is valid in perpetuity for a massage in the future. And all that does is sort of spread out my financial loss over more time, which is something that's important. And the other thing is, I was offering maybe some Skype sessions for breath work or embodiment work, or helping people manage any injuries by giving them some advice. I said, honestly, I don't know yet how to value that, but here's a role I've been playing in your life. Maybe I can do that remotely. So that's the email I sent, and I have to say in 24 hours I've gotten a ton of gift certificates purchased remotely. I am really floored by the support I'm getting from my community of clients and patients who want to support me and who think that it is worth, keeping me around in their lives in some way or another. So it's a time of immense gratitude, and it's a time of immense loss. But when I sent that email, something in my heart settled. And I think what settled is that I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being a massage therapist if the sense of service I have to my patients and clients is blunted by ignoring the sense of service I have to my larger community in an age of contagion. This is the most powerful tool we have now, is social distancing, social isolation. And in an area where there's a known contagion, we've got to choose a threshold. For me, that was around 0.5% of the population, where you are likely to save a life by pausing your practice. That's nothing to take lightly. That's something to take into your heart. Realize that you're a leader in your community, and that the sense of service you have to that community at some point for you in your world should animate taking on significant costs, bearing something, and then asking for support. So where am I at? I've asked support from my clients, and some of them have responded very beautifully. I've also asked support from my community, and that's getting figured out. I've asked support of my elected officials, and we'll see. I'm right in the middle of this with you, but I thought maybe it would be helpful to hear my thought process. And I just want to say I really respect all of y'all's decisions, but this is not a time just for knee-jerk reactions. We all have to do some reading and step up to the plate on this. We have a chance to do some good. Thanks for your time. Bye.